Welcome to another Men's Ministry Moment. I'm Mike Sandlin, Cape Fear Men. Men's Ministry Moments are short, approximately 5 minutes, seconds, designed to encourage men and God to be what God has called them to be. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another." It's a scripture many ministries use in their ministry as their ministry verse. Another scripture I'd like to use comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 through 10, which tells us that two are better than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who's not alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Both of these verses, I believe, can help us understand the overall mission of ministering to men. In these verses, men's ministry men's ministry moments discussions, I should say, I will share how, as men and men's ministry leaders, we can connect with men of our churches and communities and talk about some of the struggles we face as men. This year, we will be rebooting men's ministry moments as 2020 was a strange year and the landscape of ministering to men changed significantly. Even 2021 is beginning with the reverberation of the 2020 still lingering. So how do we become the men God desires for us to be? How do we stay connected with our men in our churches and continue to reach men in the community? Several weeks ago, I reached out to a number of you, asking you to share what that one question, so to speak, or concern you may have about men in today's culture. Many of you responded, and I received a lot of input from men's leaders and pastors throughout the region. First, let me say thank you for sharing your questions and concerns. It's been a tremendous help as we look forward to developing future men's ministry moments and dealing with subjects with leaders in men's ministries and in our Intentional Conversations podcast. If there is one thing I have learned in my years working with men, is that even in churches just a few miles apart, the way we tap into our men can be significantly different. The difference between how churches connects with men between a rural, a suburban, or an urban body of believers can be quite different. Then add to that the difference of the group's culture. Maybe it's race, and even the generations within that church can make the task quite daunting for a men's ministry leader. As I reviewed all the questions and concerns, it appears that all of what I just mentioned was reflected. I received questions about men having intentional prayer and Bible devotional time to dealing with mental health issues, concerns with men who are reverting back to destructive, addictive habits they seem to have beaten before the pandemic started, to dealing with the day-to-day struggles we all fight. Social media has generated even a bigger gap between generations. How do we effectively communicate? How do we connect? And the digital world is changing how we relate with people, both in our families, work, friends, and how we ourselves process information. And because of the pandemic, many had to learn new technology, how to use Facebook Live and YouTube Live, the various video meeting platforms such as Zoom and WebEx and Google Meet and a host of other platforms. We've all been on them in the last year. Even I had to learn how to use technologies I had not used before, and new platforms are coming out regularly. In fact, I'm using a platform today to do this broadcast that just started a couple of years ago. In the coming weeks, we will dive into some of these issues you shared. Some we will discuss here on Men's Ministry Moments. Others we'll tackle on the Intentional Conversation podcast as we interview men. These will be men who have overcome the issues or ministries that leaders can tap into to help their men. Intentional Conversations is a podcast I moderate where I interview men and men's ministry leaders to help men navigate the world of ministry to men. Intentional Conversations is billed as a men's ministry leader interviewing leaders in men's ministry. I hope you will look for these men's ministry moments and intentional conversations regularly. Subscribe to them on YouTube or go to the CapeFearMen.org/podcast to see all of the podcasts. You will also be able to see the latest on the Cape Fear Men website and any past recordings you may have missed. I encourage you to share this with your friends and invite them to watch these broadcasts also. So I hope this has piqued your interest. Now, in the next episode, we will start diving into all those questions and concerns. The first item I will discuss is something several pastors and men's ministry leaders shared in the survey, and that is the need for men to have a daily devotional time with God and how His Word and how men, we can help each other do that. So until then, to the challenge and adventure to disciple men. Once again, this is Mike Sandlin. God bless.